но то, что вот этот, Алёш,
Because UBI, as Yang was doing it, it would be subject to political woes every time there's a tremor in the economy. People would want to defund it. But I mean, even more important, or as important as having a minimum wage, you need to cap what people can gain in one particular year. You need to cap. There should be a maximum wage or a maximum amount that anyone can have. This bullshit about the wealth tax. I'm not even talking about the wealth tax. You don't have to be a wealth tax. Tax the earnings. Go back to the 1950s when, and people will say, well, in the 1950s, they weren't paying the whole 92%. They don't even understand that number one, you're always going to have people cheat. That doesn't mean that you don't set the bar high.
Obviously.
But also that when you say that the highest marginal tax rate in Ike's era was 92%, that doesn't mean that if you made $100, the government took 92%. No, if you made, let's say $100,000 then, or let's say if you did it today, okay, up to the first, say $200,000, if you're an individual, you would be taxed at 30%. From 200 to 500,000, you might be taxed at 45%. 500,000 to 5 million, it miit be taxed at 60%. Anything over 5 million, then you would be taxed at the 90% rate. So, and people are like, oh, this is. You tell me what any human being could do. Celebrity, inventor. I mean, okay, I could see an inventor, someone who invents a really useful product. I could see that being there. But CEOs, there is no CEO that's worth anything more than 10 times what the average worker makes. And that's one of the things I put in corporations. I would say,
like literally in terms of the job that they're doing, it can't possibly be, more than 10 times. Exactly. Like just think about the work they're objectively contributing, because most CEOs by definition, they're just mediocrities, right? No different than any other worker.
I worked at AT&T at the turn of the century. I remember one year, it must have been 00 or 01, this guy, Michael Armstrong from Comcast back then, as part of the Comcast, Comcast AT&T merger, became the CEO. And I remember we every month or so, there would be one major decision. And we on my team would say, well, was this a good decision or not? What would you do? Well, we took a vote, and out of the 16 decisions over like 16 months, we were right on 13 of the decisions that we made as collections reps, and 3 times were wrong. Armstrong was the exact opposite, right 3 times and wrong 13 times. And yet this guy got a fucking golden parachute after tanking AT&T stock so bad that's why it was taken over by SBC and merged back into Bell. So these guys, everything is, it's like, don't give me this bullshit about these guys are somehow wizards and know how to make it. Every fucking single rich person that had someone give him the seed money to start him out. Elon fucking Musk, his father owned an emerald mine. He was worth $100 million or more before he took his first shit. Don't tell me that he did anything to earn anything. And don't tell me this, he's doing so well with the Tesla cars. There have been people around with that. It's just that Elon Musk knows how to sell himself more and the bullshit more. Look at all these people, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, all of these people at some point made terrible decisions that would have tanked them had they not leveraged their own debt to the point where other people had to bail them out.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, I think at least twice, almost tanked fucking Apple. Don't give me this, he was some fucking visionary. He didn't design the fucking Apple iPhones. He didn't design the Mac. Bill Gates stole the code for fucking Windows. Don't tell me these people are visionary. Don't talk to me about the fucking Gates Foundation. Get out. All of these people from the robber barons of the 19th century, they fuck over people. They screw the little guy. Instead of, I've often said too, a society that has a lot of charities is a failed society, because no society should have to depend upon the goodwill of the people who can least afford it. They should depend on the people who get the most, giving back the most, because no one here, not Bill Gates, not Jeff Bezos, they all depend on the public commons. Every fucking road, every fucking air traffic controller, every single truck that drives and brings product, every single computer system that's owned by states or by federal government, everything that you can imagine is in the public commons, and these people use it, and they should pay more back to use it. There's no reason that Walmart workers should have to be on fucking Medicare. There's no fucking reason that Amazon workers should have to fight to get fucking masks when they're working on a fucking assembly line 2 feet from each other. But the biggest problem is these fucking zombies that work. Oh, I've got my Apple cell phone. I don't give a fuck if Antarctica is melting away. I've got my cell phone here. Or, I need to know this about, the next Lord of the Rings trilogy. Or, this, once COVID is over, they're planning this Thor movie or Godzilla movie. Who the fuck gives a shit? Who the fuck gives a shit? Again, I'm a sports fan. I don't give a, if the New York Yankees or Major League Baseball went away, I'd be like, I'd be a little bit wistful. Maybe as I get older, I think about the Yankees when I was growing up with Thurman Munson and Reggie Jackson and whatnot. But none of this stuff is that important. And yet people will they will walk by homeless people. We have, for example, I remember last year I donated some stuff to this local Liberty Hill is a town that has a homeless thing. The company I work for, they donate their fucking some outdated groceries to these rescue missions. But why should they have to? Why should that have to be? You know how much stuff I throw away at the store because there's one cracked egg, and if I have a dozen or an 18 count or a 36 count, I have to throw away all the other eggs because of the salmonella. This is fucking ridiculous waste. And in France, they actually have laws that say, I think it's at 7 days before a product is due to expire, the companies have to pull them or they get fined, and they have to donate them while it's still good to shelters. And how can you do that? That's against no. You make the rules, and if this company doesn't want to play by the rules, I'll guarantee you there's going to be innovative people who are going to learn to play in the new system, the system where the companies and the corporations have to follow the rules and aren't making the fucking rules, because corporate America especially is the worst. They are and have always been far bigger organized crime than any mafia, any drug cartel. There's an old saying, behind every fortune is a crime, and I say behind every corporation is a crime wave.
One thing I'll say about this idea of the public commons, whenever you argue with these like hardcore libertarians, you always end up like, you have to assume that you're starting with like an infinite regress in a sense, because every libertarian that is born today and is arguing, we need to stop, for example, taxation completely or reduce or curtail it so much, they're saying this after literally being born, right, and having an obligation out towards the public commons, right? The fact that they're born in a house with running water, right? The fact that if they get sick as a child, they don't have to experience some kind of like huge mortality rate, right? The fact that many of them now will have some level, of like
this
publicly funded health insurance, right? Exactly.
And this goes back to this whole Black Lives Matter thing, this idea of white privilege. White privilege doesn't mean that every white person is rich. It means that though I can go to fucking Walmart and I'm not going to be harassed by some guard who's going to think that I'm shoplifting every day. It's going driving out for a trip with Jessica out there and not being pulled over simply because I have dark skin. These are the kinds of things that most white people don't think about. And on my own Facebook page, I see some really stupid things said by some people I worked with decades ago. I don't get into arguments with them, but because my only real reason for having them as friends is because to reminisce about kind of things. But they don't really get. I remember this one gal, and I was talking about Robert Moses or something, and about how about whites and redlining. She's like, no, there was something on Facebook where they were talking about the integration of the Glendale neighborhood back in 1960s, and I said these same motherfuckers who talk about who bullshitting about this. When I was a kid growing up in the 70s, they would talk about here come the niggers, and their kids would beat some black kids with bats. Oh, I don't remember any of that. I don't give a fuck if you don't remember any of that. It happened. Don't tell me that. You want to live in your fucking sanctified, sanitized little world? That's fine. But don't tell me it wasn't like that. Don't tell me it's not like that. When you see it on video, how many of these fucking Karens, how many of these fucking times, even before George Floyd, did you see black people? That fucking bird watcher in Central Park with that fucking bitch who said she was going to say that a black man was harassing her. What the fuck? How can you watch this and not understand how many of these white people that black people, black people commit more crime and as if I give a shit. Some of these people who against Black Lives Matter say, what about black on black crime? Yeah, well, every fucking group preys upon its own more. What about white on white crime? Most white muggers are going to be mugging white people, not black people, because they're going to be scared too shitless to mug the black people.
And also, like when we talk about things like black and black crime as a form of violence, it's not especially more egregious. In fact, it's even less so than the kind of violence that, like the kinds of crimes that poor black neighborhoods select for are simply a different kind of crimes than, upper class or even rich white neighborhoods would select for. You're not going to get a black guy coming out of, like some housing projects emerging as like the top polluter in the country, right? That's going to be the privilege of the white person, right, from the white neighborhood. And for being a polluter, right, despite this, like we were talking about asymmetry, despite such asymmetrical fucking violence, like pollution is one of the worst forms of violence if we're just going to tally up things like deaths. And because he's committing that kind of crime that seems to have like no individual like actor that's behind it, like everybody literally gets off free, right? While the poor person who, their access to crimes like is stuff like mugging, right? It's, you're going to stick up a liquor store or whatever. That's much more risky, right? You're going to get caught, and you're also going to get a lot less reward every time you engage in this kind of crime, right? Like crime is not poverty driven, or like it's character driven. Whatever area that you exist in, there is a smorgasbord of potential crimes for you to choose from. But depending on where you live, that smorgasbord is going to look different, right? The crimes available to the average white person, they just look so different.
Well, when George Floyd was first killed, you had some white people saying with this black on black crime, yeah, but he robbed a pregnant woman and held a gun to her belly. Now, my answer to that is, well, let's see. I don't believe for a second that you give a damn that he held a gun to a black woman's pregnant belly. But even if you did, let's talk about that. Oh, he was a criminal. Okay. But his first crimes were as a teenager for drug use or drug possession. So this put him into the system, and this criminalized him, because you're criminalizing someone for just selling drugs when you're not giving them an opportunity to make a good living in any other way. Then when he's in the system, he learns more crimes, and he knows that he's never going to get a fair shake. So what you're doing is, I wrote that poem. I don't know if you remember, I had this long poem called Faith, which was about a girl in the 1970s who I saw the criminal record when I worked at the court around the turn of the century. In the 1970s, a white girl in Minnesota by a white judge she stole a sweater at Target, and through the punitive actions of this asshole judge in the 70s, ended up 4 or 5 years later putting her through such a grind of the system that she ended up committing suicide. This was a white girl in the 1970s in Mary Tyler Moore's Minneapolis. It would be 10 times worse for your average black person in any major city put through the grinder simply because they were trying to sell some dope so that they could make a little bit of money so that they're not living on it. Oh, but he was selling. Fuck that. Don't give me any idea. If you're not if you're taking drugs and you're not behind a wheel, don't talk to me about fucking crimes. And yet, these same people who don't like Black Lives Matter and this whole Antifa bullshit, a bunch of college kids who are doing nothing, they said nothing when a bunch of fucking white yokels took automatic weapons to the fucking Michigan Capitol State House and basically held hostage. If I was the governor and these motherfuckers are on the state capitol talking about lynching me, I'd say, you go in there, you tell them to drop their guns or you fucking blow those motherfuckers away. You don't do that. Not a single cop went in there, bashed skulls. I was arguing with some people on my General Hospital website who eventually left the board because I got after them so much. These shots of in the various cities where the cop cars would come and they intentionally try to run down on someone. Or they're behind the barricades, and these cop cars are going in. I said, that's fucking attempted murder. You're taking a multi-ton vehicle and against unarmed citizens, and you're saying because they're protesting George Floyd that they're somehow rioting. The cops have been rioting in Portland. The cops have been killing.
Yeah, exactly.
The cops have been shown on videos damaging their own cars. They've been shown hoarding bricks. They've been shown. So obviously this is so fucking what's the name? The FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. It's like Hoover never left. This stuff was going on during the Vietnam War when I was a kid, and these people are acting as if this is somehow something new. Fuck that bullshit. I'm so fucking sick and tired of this fucking country so irresponsible that don't talk to me about the Nazis. Don't talk to me about the gulags. Don't talk to me about Mao or Pol Pot or whatnot. Deal with the fucking way you treated Indians. Deal with the way that you're still treating Indians and Native and Black Americans, the way that you treat all other people who don't fit into your fucking thing. Don't talk to me about God and all this bullshit when you so obviously don't give a damn about anything. And even if Jesus were a real figure, you haven't learned anything from the Bible. I'm a fucking atheist and agnostic. And I still remember my upbringing as a Lutheran kid. I don't go around doing harm to people. I don't go around calling people niggers or spicks or kikes or dykes or whatever the fucking bullshit. And yet these same people will talk, you see literally headlines on some of these fucking websites. How did George Floyd really die?
I
think it was the magic Negro extermination fairy that killed him.
There was this one guy that did this fucking video, and it was basically he puts somebody in a chokehold to prove that it's not that bad.
Yeah.
No, just thinking like that's where we're at.
You know the guy who aggravated me even more than this. So bad. The guy who aggravated me more than that Derek Chauvin was the little chubby Vietnamese guy, the guy who the honorary would-be white guy. Hey, Derek, I'm not going to say anything. I want to be part of this is why when people talk to me, I say every cop is corrupt, because every cop who stands by, who knowingly gives a false ticket on a parked car or gives a false speeding ticket by increasing the speed by 10 miles an hour. Every cop who does that is just as corrupt. They may not be as vile and evil, but they are 100% corrupt because they have given into the system. They do not do anything to stop it. They have to get rid of police departments. They have to come up with some other way to get people. Yes, you're going to need SWAT teams when there's a terrorist bombing or something, but you have do like the British. The guy who's on the beat cannot carry a gun. I won't even give them a taser. Give them a baton. That's it.
Yeah. It's a little different in the United States because we have so many guns and we have like open gang warfare. So like that's one of the obstacles. But just think about how terrible that framing is when people ask such dumb questions like do you think most cops are bad? And it's like, okay, let's assume that when we had those protesters in Washington, D.C., that were tear gassed, so Trump could have this like propaganda photo op with a Bible. Imagine that this is what's happening, right? They get tear gassed, and the discussion is they're throwing bricks at us or they're throwing egg yolks at us. And when you look at the video from like every possible angle, right, spliced from multiple sources, you see cops that are for no reason whatsoever just pushing past a crowd of fucking protesters, knocking them down. Many start using tear gas, and as this is happening, essentially, this is where we are, right? and nobody's stopping them, right? No cop is saying, hey, what are you doing? Don't use tear gas, don't hit them, don't strike them down. Like, not a single person in that, entire group of people stopped any cop. So if you're saying that most cops are good or 99% are good, whatever number you want to put to, well, show me a single cop in that crowd that went back to the office that night and filed a report. Hey, this was wrong. Show me a single cop that ordered another cop, put your fucking gun down. You shouldn't be allowed to do this. Not a single fucking cop, with like hundreds of them in the area. Not a single cop did that. We have no stories like that. We only have like the National Guard people who literally got tear gas themselves. So if you're saying that 99% of cops are good, what does that mean? Like, functionally, definitionally, where's that 99% in that group? Same thing with soldiers. Like, every category of armed grunts in America, has the same flaw.
Yeah, and one of the ways to change the cops is I'm as pro union as you get, but you got to get rid of cop unions. Cops cannot. You cannot have people with guns and doing this shit and having them being protected like that. You remove away
you need unions for like wage stuff, like fine, wages, like, but not we're going to, like, literally, if there's like footage of you murdering someone, we're so powerful that we could prevent prosecution. Like, that's not a reasonable power to give to a union.
Yeah, and that's the only unions that Trump and the DNC and those people kind of support, and it's so fucking ridiculous. And the reason is people here are so narcotized by their shiny little fucking cell phones and their iPads and their iPhones and their this and instant communication, and we can do everything. I mean, they just don't know how. There's so much information out there too. The people don't know how to make these choices, and it gets back to what I was talking about, that fucking philosophy kid. There's so much misinformation and disinformation put out. People don't know how to. Things are complex. This is a more complex world than 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, even 20 years ago. But it's not infinitely complex. You have an ability to make choices. You have an ability to weigh risks and weigh benefits and this and that. We have the government we have because people have been snookered, and they want to be snookered. They don't want to deal with the hard things. I never had a slave. I never killed an Indian. I'm a good person. I don't give a fuck if you're a good person. And I'm not saying that everyone has to go out to the reservations where people are dying at 5 times the rate of COVID as anyone else. The American Indians are being hit harder than any group. And it's funny because I hear, the elderly this, and people with this. I have pneumonia, so I'm in a high-risk group. But American Indians are dying at a higher rate than anyone else in this nation in COVID. And probably 90% of all the deaths that have occurred have been preventable, but that especially. This is like fucking Mao just looking the other way when there's a famine, and it's not as obvious or whatnot, but it should be. It should be, and people don't care. They don't care because they're not affected by it, and it really angers me because not everything is about me. Not everything is about, and I sometimes argue with Jessica. Stop thinking that you're always the most persecuted person. You're not. The fact that you and I cannot make a living doing what we do best, and we could do more of it, that's certainly a wrong. But it's not the only wrong out there. So just relax.
Yeah. Like all things considered, being in a position that okay, so we have to work, outside of our, like, preferred field. We have to make money, some other kind of like way, but at the same time, like, that is good enough to afford us opportunity to actually work on what we want the best. We have a purpose in life, so it protects us against so many problems that we might otherwise have. This is just a very nice way to live. Like, as hard as things are, in some ways, so many people have it so much worse. And this is just true. Like, everybody has a hardship. and you just have to deal with it, right? Every single person has a hardship.
Yeah, and but so much of it is preventable. I mean, other than the actual global warming, probably the worst thing that's going on in the world is ocean acidification. I mean, we're sterilizing large parts of the ocean. We're polluting it. And the thing, though, that's really frustrating is these are actually golden economic opportunities. Imagine if you could motivate the Civilian Conservation Corps that my dad was in the 1930s. You want to teach values. Get these inner city kids who are unemployed. Get these young farm yokels who are doing nothing but smoking crack or whatever they're doing now, whatever the opioids in these little small towns that are dying. Get them working together. Show them how to do jobs. Show them that people of different colors are not aliens. Show them that they can serve a larger purpose. Give them a purpose. Send them out on a fleet of trawlers into the Pacific to scoop up that giant circle of plastic. Send them to the fucking Great Barrier Reef in Australia and have the United States actually not be a joke for the first time in 20 years. Ever since W. Bush took over, and you could argue since Reagan, the United States has continually lost respect. And I'm not here saying that the U.S. was ever the greatest country ever, but there was a time that, for better or worse, we were thought of as the leader of the world. Now we're a fucking joke. We're a fucking joke with Trump. And it's not going to get better if Biden wins. Are you kidding me? That's just kicking the can down the road. At least if Trump wins, the chances are that some people might get so fed up that we might not get a great progressive, but we'll get someone in the Democrats who might deal with the global warming. But if you get Biden there, kicking down the can for at least 4 years, possibly 8 years if Kamala Harris takes over or something. I mean, and they're not going to do anything because all they care about is fucking getting rich. I wish to hell there was some kind of currency beyond pelf, something that had that Star Trek kind of thing of accomplishment. Don't you be doing that. But go ahead. People, they just don't think. Human beings are such short-term thinkers. And what gets me is when you have the left-wingers who are nothing but doom and gloom. That doesn't help. Okay, the Earth is not going to become Venus. The Earth, I mean, yes, millions of people, tens of millions, maybe a few 100 million people will die unnecessarily, and that's terrible and whatnot. But this isn't the apocalypse. And the idea, they said, well, but it might reach a tipping point which we'll never get back from. Yes, that's if we let nature take its course. But we also know now that we have a few dozen ways to attack global warming. Once we get AI, and even without AI, you just throw things at the dartboard, things are going to stick. We can change currents. When I was talking about Alexander the Great, when he besieged the city of Tyre, he built an isthmus, a mile-long isthmus out to the island. This is 2,300 years ago. If they could do that 2,300 years ago, don't tell me that our modern technological society can't undo the stuff we did. It's not like we're going to die overall and then no one's going to do it. We have, like the $6 Million Man, we have the technology. We can do it. We just need to have the will. And we need these fucking rich fuckers to stop worrying about stuff. You can't, Jeff Bezos could never spend all that money in his fucking lifetime. I mean, and yet, oh God, I just get so angry, and I get angry at the people who, and the reason people do it and they don't take on these people is because a lot of these people who talk about eat the rich, if they had the opportunity to be rich, they would be just as bad as these other people. And
there's so many people in left-wing YouTube. There's so many people arguing against hierarchy, right? They're saying, hierarchy period should be dissolved. And yet they're the ones that are, trying to, invite people onto debates because they want to get higher and higher in the hierarchy. They want to solidify, where they stand in terms of providing entertainment value. I mean, you brought up philosophy tube, and eventually this becomes what they do. And we know that so many of them, they don't pay their sub-employees. They never live their fucking values. It's all, it's all performative. So that's That's how I see that section of the, I guess, of the internet.
And they, and there's nothing wrong with hierarchy, just like there's nothing wrong with elitism, as long as it's earned. And as long as, if you have the power, that you wield it. There is no reason to have power unless you are going to do something good with it. Otherwise, it's a waste. What limited power I have as, quote unquote, maybe an expert about art or about writing, I wield in a very responsible way. I'm not here telling you, I'm not against black people writing, but I want to see people of quality. I want to see James Emanuel. I don't want to see some fucking hack mediocrity like Rita Dove being named the poet laureate when James Emanuel was a lot better. I don't want to, but people, they can't, they can't, they think in these block mentalities. Oh, you can't criticize a black person. Why can't I? She's writing in English. I don't care. You could put that the writing after me without the name. I'm not going to be influenced. I'm not influenced by saying, oh, some big name poet submitted something to me to Cosmoetica. I've had a few dozen people who've had books published that have sent it to Cosmoetica, and I said, now this isn't good. Even if I thought that I could get 1 million more hits on that by publishing that poem, I'm not going to do it. What good is that going to do it? I'm not making. There's no way I can make money off Cosmoetica. I never could, even a decade ago when it was, I guess, at its height in terms of being a percentage of the internet. I mean, I still do get more hits on the website than I ever have before, but the internet is about 5 or 6 times the size it was even 10 or 12 years ago, and I'm only getting maybe 5 or 10% more hits per year. So in terms of the reach, it's shrinking, even though it's actually growing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. There were a couple of people who wrote me at the end of 2018 wanting my plays and wanting some other stuff I wrote. I haven't heard back from them. I get these emails from people every so often wanting to read my stuff, and I send it to them, and then 6 months or a year later, I follow up and say, did you ever read it? And I never get a response back. And it's like, why do you ask me for something? I give it to you.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something that online, if I was like most people, I'd say, just go to Amazon and buy it for $5 or whatever. They're very cheap, but I give it to people and then I don't get anything back. And it's like, it would be at least courteous for you to at least answer the email and tell me that you didn't have time to read it. Is that too much to ask? But apparently it is. But anyway.
Yeah. I could see that. I mean, yeah, that happens to me. Like, I feel like anybody outside of like, my Cosmoetica orbit, like the people that I met through Cosmoetica, and like my wife, aside from those people, nobody would like read like my books, right? Like people just don't care, right? Non-artists don't care. They're just, but like to me, it's like, what other fighting concerns do you actually have? Like, what else are you so concerned about that you can't read a book that you think is good and is also from somebody that you know, right? It just kind of, it's a very weird disconnect to me.
Oh, by the way, so how is doing? You mentioned him earlier. Is what's his wife's name?
Yeah. I don't actually know too much about her. I know that she does some kind of like film producing work, something like that, maybe some kind of director.
Did he just get married on the spur of a moment, or was he planning it for a while?
Well, I think he's been with her for some time, and then they were like, fuck it, what's the point of waiting? Which, I mean, you said this before. I think you should be pretty fairly quickly. You should know whether or not you want to marry someone. I've always felt like these like long drawn out marital processes that you see like being discussed or in the movies or in books. That's just not people that need that. Maybe they probably shouldn't be getting married. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Tell him. If you speak to him, tell him that one of these days he should tell me. I know he's busy. He's probably working 50 plus hours doing his nursing stuff. But I don't think I haven't had an actual talk with him in the last 2.5 years since I left the school. So it'd be good to follow up with him. But anyway, So good talking. I was just relaxing early in the day because I knew we would have a long talk and whatnot. So I'll just keep on keeping on. Let me know when you want to talk again and send me the links, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.